Hey everyone, what's up? It's another week of Find Your Film. We are a week older. I am still screwing up on a lot of things. Probably, I should, guys. I think every time I edit the show, I should actually note on how many times I screw up on names. Like Paul Jenkins last week, I screwed that one up. It's actually Richard Jenkins for The Last Shift. I was gonna probably call it The Late Shift. It's The Last Shift. So thank you guys so much for spearheading last week's episode on The Last Shift and all the other stuff. This week we have a different one that we're hopefully I think we've all seen. I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say about 12-hour shift. But before that, let us get Millennium Eric Holmes. What that interesting moniker. Are you teasing us regarding a movie you're going to review in this episode, later this episode, or are you just
Probably early in this episode. It's a rewind.
okay to rewind? Very, very cool. Very cool. You've been watching a lot of stuff. Have you been watching a lot of voyeuristic movies the last week, Eric Holmes?
Yeah, you could say that. You could say that.
Do you follow people in museums, Eric Holmes, with a camera?
No,
Okay.
no, I try not to do that. People look at me weird. People look at me weird anyway, but if I did that, they'd look at me weird and then call the cops, and I just don't need that kind of.
That following museums was not a dig at Eric Holmes. This is a teaser of something he's going to cover and uncover later this episode. Bruce Perky, the old Bruce, the Brucey, that has something to do with, I'm sure, something that we're going to talk about later in the episode. But Bruce, you really want to? I was going to ask you with the requisite, what have you been doing the last week? Have you seen a lot of movies? The answer is always yes. But you have a project that you really wanted to talk about before we started getting into the rewinds and the movie picks this week.
Yeah, well, we had talked in the past when we guested on Cinematics, and Eric had set up his swear jar, and the idea was that he would kind of start it out and get everyone to kind of get behind some up and coming independent movie with a seed and spark, or see if we could find something. And I just, lo and behold, came across Virginia Newcomb, who is in The Death of Dick Long, and we all liked her performance quite a bit in that. And she is on Twitter, and she's been tweeting out because she's going to be acting in an upcoming movie. It's actually a little independent movie being made in Alabama right now, directed by Benjamin Stark, called Don't Die. And they have a seed and spark, and I think they're trying to raise like $20,000, so pretty meager amount for a movie. They're micro budgeting it. And they've got, if you go to Seed and Spark and look up Don't Die, you'll see like a little pill, symbol of a pill, because it has something to do with underground pharmaceuticals. Sounds like something like a robbery gone wrong, or some kind of nefarious things. So I would say that is something to really look into and support. She's an awesome actress. Really cool if you follow her on any of her social media, and it just seems like it would be a good thing to support.
Listeners, if you've never heard of this actress or what she does, just go see The Death of Dick Long. I think it was Bruce Perky. You were, when we were doing the movie mainline with the previous podcast. Were you the one who brought out? You were the one who actually brought The Death of Dick Long to us, right?
Yeah, I brought it in, and then we did a deep dive on it, and we all kind of fell in love with it.
We kind of fell in love with great location, really interesting ensemble, really weird, eccentric, well done movie. Eric, I mean, that's a movie that even years from now you wouldn't mind rewatching, right? The Death of Dick Long. I just love that movie.
Yeah, I've actually seen it a couple times since the initial time, so it's pretty good. Oddly enough, I still have not seen Swiss Army Man, so maybe I'll get around. I really should get around to that, but yeah, Death of Dick Long was pretty fantastic.
You know what's so funny, Eric? You're not supposed to watch The Death of Dick Long a couple of times after that, because we have a huge movie slate every week, but you just end up watching movies. So you can watch so many movies every week. That's so amazing.
Yeah. Well, I'll get like a movie that I'll watch for fun. Like this week, for example, I watched Plan 9 from Outer Space again with the kids, for reasons that will become apparent much later, not on this episode. But then like the end of the week comes and I'm like, oh shit, I gotta watch the movies I gotta do for the podcast. So I got like two different brains. I got the brain that watches movies for fun, and then I got the movies that I watch for the podcast, which ultimately later on become fun later on.
I'm gonna Google movies for fun. I'm gonna see what that one's about because I have no idea. Because I'm a jaded, horrible human being. But the good thing is, you guys are not jaded or horrible people. The first segment for our Find Your Film, before we get into our weekly movie recommendations, is our rewind segment. Do you guys have any rewinds for this week? Bruce, do you have something for this week for rewind?
I do not. I think that's on Eric's lap.
Okay, Eric's lap. Millennium Eric, do you have so you said you have a rewind for this week.
Yes, I finally watched Millennium Actress, and I've watched all of Millennium Actress, and um, I mean, we've kind of gone over a lot of it. You got it's kind of she's in a movie, but kind of in her life, and then she's got the director and the camera guy following around,
Right.
and
It's a weird
okay.
movie, non-linear in a way.
I don't know what I can say about this, but that like I got the point that they were not exactly there, but they kind of were,
Yeah.
but not really. And then you mentioned that because last week I mentioned I had about 15 or so minutes left,
Yeah.
and I was in for a ride, and yeah, it was out of this world, we'll say.
Out of this wow, very
So beautiful.
that there was a lot of gravity towards that comment. So
I,
horrible
I was
pun.
I was over the moon about it. But yeah, the short version is Millennium Actress, just like all the rest of his I've seen, is fantastic. And hope to get to Tokyo Godfather this week, maybe next week or the following week. We'll see. But yeah, Satoshi Kon, dude, great find, Bruce. And it sucks that it took us this long to get there,
Yeah.
but we got there, and I'm
I'm
glad
not
we
much
did.
ahead of you guys. I'm only like a year ahead of you guys, so don't feel bad.
Well, listeners, if you haven't listened to our Satoshi Kon episode, Director Spotlight, that was spearheaded by Bruce Purkey, and he said a year ahead of us. Within the last year, he's been really getting into animation, specifically anime, and I guess Eric and I have been kind of following his lead. Eric, after our Satoshi Kon episode a couple of days later, he actually Facebook messaged both of us with the Satoshi Kon Blu-ray grabs he got from his local store, which was awesome. I haven't done that yet, but I actually joined into this whole anime thing by last weekend. I went to my local Best Buy and I purchased a movie called Your Name, which Bruce Purkey, I was listening to an old episode. He was saying how much of a great love story Your Name is. And me being a sap, I really wanted to see if Bruce Purkey was correct regarding Your Name. And I purchased, Bruce, you better be right, man. Like $24.99, $25. I'm a broke man. I think I'm wearing the same shirt from last episode. I have two shirts. You better be right on Your Name, that animated classic. $24.99 for the steelbook. Okay, was that an okay buy, Bruce?
I think so, but I like it. So if you like it,
Okay, so yeah, so that's Your Name, and that's not a Satoshi Kon film, but check out
no.
our piece on Satoshi Kon from several weeks ago. That's really cool. So Millennium Actress, before we get out of there, Eric, I I I was saying how memorable that story was. Did you really feel that? Did this movie hit you as far as the story element goes? Do you feel that it packed an emotional punch for you as well as it did for me and Bruce?
Yeah, the especially at the end, and I
You
she
can't. Yeah,
look. Well, you'll know what I'm saying when I say that she comes to a realization at the end,
right.
Yeah.
and it's I guess to put it to where people might understand, it's not the destination, it's the journey. That's the theme of that's what the theme of the whole movie becomes.
Right.
And
Yep.
like when she said that thing, and she didn't say that, but she said, "I'll stop." But point is, when she said that thing, I was like, yeah, how about that?" And it was kind of I don't know, it was weird because it was sad, but it was like kind of you did it.
Yeah.
But
Kind of
that,
bittersweet. It's not full sad. Yeah.
yeah, it's really hard to talk about it without giving things away. Um, and but yeah, it was fantastic. I would recommend anyone watch it. I still think that I like Perfect Blue better, just
Oh,
because that kind of I don't know, maybe I don't know, that one just hit me a little different. But this one was a little more emotional. And then you got Paprika, which is emotional, but I don't understand why. It just is.
I'll be really curious when you watch Tokyo Godfathers, because I haven't talked about that on here yet. So we can kind of
Yeah.
do that together. Let me know the week you're going to do it, and maybe I'll rewatch it again before.
Yeah,
But
we'll try this week, but probably the following week. Well,
cool.
we'll get to it soon for sure.
Okay.
Awesome.
Tokyo Godfathers in a couple of weeks. We are basically Find Your Film is basically the Satoshi Kon show,
Yeah, pretty much.
co-starring Brian
I'm
De
fine with
Palma.
that. I'm fine
Yeah.
with that.
Co-starring Brian De Palma and William Friedkin. That's all you need to know about Find Your Film. We're gonna do, by the way, in a couple of weeks, we're gonna do a 5-part episode on William Friedkin and just cover all of his work. What do you think of that?
I'm fine with that too.
Okay, so before we get to the 5-episode William Friedkin down the road, all three of us have seen this movie called 12-Hour Shift. I'm gonna say this: when I saw 12-Hour Shift, I was pleasantly surprised. I really enjoyed it. I always get nervous about this because this time out, I actually did see the movie. I had the publicist send the screening link to Bruce Perky and Eric Holmes. I have not heard any lick of comments regarding 12-Hour Shift. I am nervous that they did not feel this movie as much as I did. But before we get into, Bruce, you're going to go first with this, but here's a plot synopsis. It's written and directed by Brea Grant. You might know her she's a character actress. I remember her from her work in Heroes back in the day. I was a big fan of that NBC series, Heroes. But 12-Hour Shifts, it's set in 1999, and it centers on a nurse played by Angela Bettis. I've never seen, I think Angela Bettis was in one of the Carrie films or something like that. She's popular with a certain group. I'll look her up on IMDb. She's very good as this nurse she's a pill popping nurse. She's addicted to pills, but even more than that, she is running an organ transplant black market operation situation with her quote unquote cousin, played by Chloe Farnworth. And this actress, in my opinion, steals the show. So it's a junkie nurse, her cousin, and another woman in the hospital. They're running this black market organ operation. What happens is the kidney that the Chloe Farnworth character is, Regina, the kidney that she's trying to transplant, something goes awry, and that leads to this really crazy madcap situation in the hospital. There's criminals. There's a convict played by David Arquette, who also produced the film. And yeah, I just thought this was it's 87 minutes. It's an indie film with a lot of bite, and it blends horror, comedy, it's violence, tragedy. It's a really weird burrito, but I ended up really liking the overall flavor of 12-Hour Shift. Bruce Perky, your thoughts?
It's almost like a kidney heist farce. I was going to say real quick, Angela Bettis. If you want to see something Angela Bettis is in, it's great. She wasn't a kind of a Carrie reboot remake thing, but look at her early movie called May. She made a movie called May that's quite amazing. Really weird, strange, dark horror movie from like the early thousands, I want to say 2001 or two. That one's excellent.
Is that the Frankenstein kind of one? She's a Frankenstein kind of movie.
Kind of. She's like a really messed up woman who's like really depressed, and she also is. I can't even get into it. It gets really dark and weird.
I know what you're talking about then.
Yeah, it's really good. So this movie, I would say I am in the middle on this movie. I'm not super hot. I'm not down on it. And I think the thing about this movie is comedy is really subjective. Dark comedy is even more subjective, I think. And it's really hard. So dark comedy either gets you or doesn't get you. So for me, the thing that didn't get me about it was I thought the characters were too dumb. It was too farcy, a little bit too quirky with a capital Q. Like, for example, the soundtrack all the way along is kind of telling you how much of a quirky time we're having. And it was kind of this weird comedic version of like the Omen almost, with like this
Sure.
weird like chanty stuff going on. And then the other thing that bothered me about it that I wanted to like, I really wanted to like it more because all the events I liked, and I liked the idea of this night in a hospital overnight, one night, and it goes off the rails, and it goes off the rails like all the
Yeah.
way. And I love that. And I love the fact that it had it had the grit to go gory when it needed to go gory. It didn't shy away from that at all. And I love that stuff. What I didn't like though, and I'll stop and let Eric put his 2 cents in, was the characters were so dumb. So dumb. Everything relied on characters being like beyond dumb. And they were playing Regina's character, who is really good. Chloe's awesome in this, really funny. But she is like the dumb blonde stereotype 2 times 10, to the fact that she doesn't even know where certain organs are, and I won't say how that happens exactly. But even more so, there's like some police officers that are like Barney Fife's dumber cousin, you know, and you're just like, what? Make him like, I would rather have seen the events happen in a slightly more plausible way, and then I could have really bought all the way in.
It
So
was
I
too
would say
cartoonish for you, a little bit
a
too
little
cartoon.
too cartoonish, or
Okay.
just the tone was just a little off. So I would say it's a mild recommend. And with that, knowing that some people are going to love it, it's going to hit exactly the tone they want.
Yeah.
And some people are going to like totally not like it because it's going to be absolutely what they don't want. You know what I mean? Some people are going to want a way more serious movie. I kind of wanted it to be what it was, but I just wanted to tweak the tone a little more believable and a little darker. Actually, I would have gone a little darker and a little less comedic, but that's just
Yeah.
personal taste, you know?
Yeah, very before we get to you, Eric, I also really love the performances. The end credits, one of my favorite end
Yeah.
credits
Yeah.
ever in 12-hour shift. Listeners, however you land on this movie, the end credits should get you. I mean, in a positive light. It is a memorable end credits sequence. Eric Holmes, your thoughts on
Mhm.
this movie?
Well, my thoughts are that sounds like a really cool movie. And I just checked my email. I don't think I got this one.
You never got
Oh
the screen?
no.
Oh no, you didn't get the screener link?
I don't think I'll check the spam, but I don't think
Oh, my bad.
I heard you guys talking 12-hour shift, and I'm like, wait, no, that was the last shift. We did that last week. Why are we talking about it again? I mean, it's a good movie, but
That's so interesting. I
then you started talking. I was like, oh no, what did I do?
that was me last week with the last shift. I just never got to the last
Oh,
shift, and that,
and you'll be sad, Eric, because there's a wrestler in this movie too. What's the guy?
Mick Foley's in
Mick
this one.
Foley's in this.
Yeah.
Yeah, he plays a bit
Oh,
part in
okay.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's in Peanut Butter Falcon.
Yeah, he's like
Yeah.
had a acting resurgence lately. I don't know what it is, but I just want to point out. I want to redouble up that Chloe and Angela Bettis are both super good in this, and they are really the co-leads. I mean, they are. What would you say? Like 80% of this movie revolves around those two.
yeah,
So
yeah.
even not totally loving the tone, every scene that they were in, which is almost all the scenes, I mean, I loved what they were doing. I just tweak it a little bit, and I would have
Yeah.
loved it. You know what I
I
mean?
got you. Yeah, no, I got you. That's so interesting. Um, yeah, Eric, definitely would love to see your reactions if you ever track down 12-hour shift. It's an interesting film, and
Yeah.
I think going back to what Bruce was saying, baseline, it has really great performances. So I think you're either going to land on it doesn't hit the right tone, like Bruce was saying, or you're just going to flip for this. I think there's almost going to be no middle ground, in my opinion, because you're either going to like the tone, love it, or dislike it. So it is.
But I don't think it's the kind of thing where, like, say, if you didn't like the tone, like you said, you could appreciate a lot of the stuff in here still if the tone wasn't quite right. Whereas some movies, it's like everything's wrong. You know what I mean? It just doesn't hit on any level. This hits on a lot of levels for me. So
Yeah, yeah. And Chloe Farnworth, she's so good in this movie, and I love Angela Bettis's character because she's that
Yeah.
nurse, and she plays a character who, even though she's addicted, and there's so many things that she does that will make you go, "What the F is going on?" She really has this "I'm totally over this" attitude
Yeah.
towards the entire movie. Every time.
That's the very beginning. The very first interaction she has starts that way, right?
Yeah,
And I love that the very beginning is like it's almost like the cartoon where it's like the dogs pass and they
Yeah.
punch in to go be sheepdogs for the day. I don't know if you ever seen that old Looney Tune cartoon, and they're like, "Hey Joe, bye Joe." It's kind of like that. Like
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
the day shift person meets her, and the day shift person is super like fake to her, and she
yeah.
just ends it with like, fuck off or whatever. And from that point forward, and then she goes and crushes up some pills and snorts them, and that's the beginning of her character. You're like, okay, I see where she's at.
I don't
You're
know.
like,
I have a feeling that Eric would love this. I don't know.
yeah.
I think so. And you're gonna love that. The end credits are amazing. But Eric Holmes, you're gonna okay. So that is wait before we get that. That's 12-hour shift. It opens Friday, October 2nd, in theaters and on demand. Okay, Eric Holmes, you have your first recommendation for this week.
Yeah, got a couple. Well, hell with it. We'll start with this. Saw a movie. Okay, so we're doing a little De Palma thing after we record this. So be sure to listen to that episode because we haven't recorded it yet, but it's going to be awesome. One of the movies we're doing is Femme Fatale, and I believe it was on the last episode I said, "Oh yeah, I got that on Criterion." I do not have that on Criterion.
I don't think it has a Criterion.
I have Dressed to Kill on Criterion, and I'm a fucking dumbass. So I was like, well, yeah, watch Femme Fatale. Might as well watch Dress to Kill again. And so that's what I did. And I watched Dress to Kill by Brian De Palma. It starts off with Brian De Palma is like this close to doing porn at times. The way this movie opens up, it's a lady played by, maybe you can help me out here.
Angie Dickinson.
Yeah,
Is it
the
Angie Dickinson,
older
right?
lady, and she's a bit of not a prostitute, but she's a little loose. The prostitute comes later, but she how much can I say? Okay, she has a few trysts, and at one point she finds out that the person that she had a tryst with has a sexually transmitted disease, and then she bounces and realizes she left her wedding ring, went to go back and get it, and she opens the door and there's this big woman there with big sunglasses, and she steps in the elevator and kills her. And before I go on any further, that scene, okay, so the woman kills her in the elevator, and then it goes to, was it level 7? It goes to one of the floors, and there's this guy and this girl waiting there. The door opens, the guy's like, ah, and he runs away. And the girl just sees her, and she just doesn't know what to do, and she's about to reach him. And I've noticed Brian De Palma does this a lot. He'll take these moments that only last, like in real life, would only last like a second. It would be her reaching for the dead body or the dying body in the elevator, but they slow it down, and then you see her hand, and you see the door closing, and you see her hand, and then you see the woman's back with the razor,
Straight razor.
as the door's closing, the razor's there as her hand's coming in. Oh man, so it's so good. And then so she sees the body, and she sees the woman through the mirror, and it's it's a great scene. But anyway, so she backs off, the door closes, it goes down, she tries to find it, and the woman's gone. And so now you have Michael Caine.
Michael Crane.
He's kind of he's not a detective. He's like what do you call it?
Therapist?
Psychiatrist,
Yeah.
therapist. And you also have the guy from, what was it, NYPD Blue or something like that?
Dennis Franz.
Yes.
Yeah, Dennis Franz. Dude, he's such a dickhead in this.
Yeah.
And so Dennis Franz is talking with Michael Caine about the murder, while the woman's son, I think it's her son or grandson, but he's sitting outside like listening in. That's another good part. He hooks up this thing to listen into the conversation while they're trying to talk about what happened. And as soon as he listens in, it's like, she was a whore anyway. She was blown, just blown on by everyone, if you know what I mean. It's like, oh, God, you do not want to hear about that about your grandma or mom. And then, so anyway, it's the son and the girl that saw it trying to figure out who the killer is. And then there's a bunch of weird twists and stuff that I probably shouldn't get into, but it's
The son is played by Keith Gordon. He
yeah.
ended up being a director, and he's also most mainly known also as an actor from, I believe, Christine, which I haven't seen, and he was also the co-lead with Rodney Dangerfield in Back to School. Keith Gordon was a big-time actor. I mean, not a big-time actor. He was a solid actor, had a good career, but then he eventually transitioned into directing. And Brian De Palma was one of his early influences as a collaborator. So sorry to interject on that.
Oh no, that's fine. I saw him and he looked familiar. I couldn't quite place him. I think he's like one of those guys. It's not the same actor from Legend of Billie Jean, is it?
I
Or
don't
is that someone
know.
else?
I haven't seen Legend of Billie Jean, but I will. Have you seen Legend of Billie Jean? There, Bruce Berkey, have you seen that? No, Back to School.
A long time ago, yeah.
Back to School. No. No. He was not the same guy from. Yes, he was the same guy as the Legend of Billie Jean. 1985. He played Lloyd.
All right, yeah, that was bugging me because I was like, I know that face.
He's one of those guys. You see him in a lot of stuff, and other than Christine, like a lot of times he was like that. One of those guys, like, oh, I've seen that guy in another teen movie. You know, like he was all over the place. So yeah,
and he's a successful director, TV director now, and he's done a lot of movies. I mean, not several movies that were very cool. In 2000, he directed this movie called Waking the Dead with Billy Crudup and Jennifer Connelly. That's an amazing film that no one has ever really seen. Really well done film. And then in 1988, he did a movie called The Chocolate War, which I haven't seen. But in 1992, I believe I reviewed this movie for my UCLA Daily Bruin when I was a film critic. He directed this movie called A Midnight Clear with Ethan Hawke.
I've seen that.
He's a solid filmmaker. But going back to Keith Gordon and Nancy Allen for Dress to Kill. Wait, was it Nancy Allen in Dress to Kill? So you were saying they're going on that search for the killer, for the mother's killer?
Yeah. As far as plot goes, I kind of want to leave it there because there's a bunch of twists and turns. But there is a great, because obviously De Palma loves using that split diopter. And there's a wonderful use of that in this. Well, I guess you could use the what they call it, deep focus, where everything's in focus. But he loves using the split diopter. And here's the part. We'll just say that. Okay, so Nancy Allen and say Keith Gordon, they're like talking in like a restaurant or something, and Nancy Allen's talking to Keith Gordon. And he's got some table of old ladies behind him. You know what I'm talking about? And they're talking.
I'm trying to remember. I haven't seen that movie, to be honest, in about 10, 15 years.
They're talking about a thing. She's describing a procedure that I can't get into because that would be a spoiler. But she's describing this procedure in graphic detail, along with some of the stuff that they already know that happened in graphic detail. Yeah. And she notices that the old woman sitting behind the son is listening in on her. And I think she's just kind of playing with her because she's just going in even more graphic detail while she's just sitting there like pretending like she's not listening, but everything they say is completely offensive to her. She's like, oh no, I'm not listening. I'm not listening. And then they did this, and this. She's like, I cannot. I was not listening. But yeah, I've heard people talk bad on split diopters. That is a fantastic use of it because you get that. That's it. When we're
Why
talking
would people
about
talk bad on split? I don't get it. It's called.
I think they think that it looks cheesy or something, and I guess it kind of does, but if you don't have a camera that can do deep focus, I guess you're kind of stuck with either doing that or you got to keep rack focusing all the time. But for De Palma, it's kind of his, it's kind of one of his trademarks. So
Yeah.
I would think that if I saw a Brian De Palma movie without split diopter, am I really watching a De Palma movie? I don't think I am.
No, no, you're not.
But that was such a fantastic use of it, because like you just see him like because he's into the conversation because of what they're talking about, and then just seeing her reaction. But when we were talking about Alone, when you have the exposition in the foreground and something else going in the background, this is like perfect example of something like that, where you got I don't know, it's just a great shot among many. Yeah, Dress to Kill.
Dress to
Get
Kill.
that.
Yeah.
Go for this one.
So you actually had the Criterion Collection, and it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't femme fatale. But now that you've seen it again, do you see this? Feel this movie was released in 1980, made in 1980, a little bit dated, or does it still stand the test of time?
Yeah, no, it's very dated, especially with how they I could see a lot of people having problems with this, with how they represent certain people.
Mm-hmm.
And back in the day, I should not even.
Yeah, no, don't
Yeah,
get into it. But I know what you're saying.
Oh no, I know where you're going.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
there's things that wouldn't land with people watching today, but at the time, I think it was probably gosh, it wasn't even really groundbreaking because they've done that in other movies. But
Yeah,
It was. I think at the time it's very controversial, with just like you were saying, a lot of the stuff that comes out, the sexuality,
yeah,
the violence, and the couple of twists towards the
yeah.
end, which probably wouldn't land today.
yeah,
So
yeah.
Well, I guess I could say this. There's because Michael Caine, he's a therapist, and so you have insane people, and this is one of those movies. When it was made, insane people were, you know, they weren't even real characters. Really, they were just kind
Yeah.
of
They were
or
like
one dimension.
a
I'm
type.
crazy. Look
Yeah.
at me, how crazy I
Yeah.
am. I'm crazy. Like that's the beginning and end of that character. And I think with how people view mental health these days, that probably wouldn't land today. But
Right.
also, it was made in 1980, so what can you do?
but one of the
But
things that oh, go ahead.
oh, go ahead.
One of the things I really remember from Dress to Kill, even though it's been a while since I've seen it, for some reason it really wasn't at the top of my Brian De Palma list. It's a very good movie because biasly I'm a De Palma fan, but the one sequence I do remember is the museum sequence where she is sort of picked up by a stranger in a way, or she actually turns a table. I think she's enticed by the stranger in a museum, and it's really well done, and it sort of leads to what you were talking about, the plot exposition, the Angie Dickinson character. It's just a really, the first time I saw that, I was blown away, and realizing, yeah, this is the museum sequence is Brian De Palma doing a riff on Vertigo,
Mhm.
and also the Angie Dickinson's character arc, which you explained, Eric Holmes. That's doing a riff on, let's say, Psycho. Okay,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of Hitchcockian riffs in Dress to Kill. And for me, Bruce, did you feel that this movie? I know it's been a while since you've seen it. Did it land for you when you first saw it, or?
It's hard for me to remember how I took it, but I know after rewatching, and we'll get into the De Palma episode and do a lot more of this. So I don't want to go too far into it, but
Sure.
revisiting these movies, I really come at them with a different point of view than I did originally. So I don't even trust necessarily what I mean, I don't remember thinking it was spectacular. Although I definitely remember like the elevator scene. I think that's super iconic as well from that
Sure.
movie. But I wouldn't be surprised if I went back and watched it now and I discovered loving it quite a bit more than I did at the time, because my experience going back and watching other movies, which we will discuss, has been much more appreciative of what I've come to. So
Cool. Well, before we get to Bruce, your recommendation, Eric Holmes, we're going to be talking about De Palma ad nauseum pretty soon with that spotlight. Do you have
Fine with it.
yeah, we talked about De Palma ad nauseum last week. Was it last week? Thank you guys for that birthday present, or a couple of weeks ago. A couple of weeks ago we did that, right? The Fury and
Yeah.
Raising Cane, that was amazing. That was really cool. Thank you for that. By the way, we are going to talk about Raising Cane again because it's my favorite De Palma film. And we're also going to be talking about Femme Fatale. So I'm really excited to see. We all know what Bruce Perky thought about Raising Cane from a couple weeks back. Really want to hear what Eric Holmes has got to say about Raising Cane. And would love to hear what Bruce Perky and Eric Holmes have to say about Femme Fatale, a movie that I really, really was high on years back. So maybe things since then have changed. But before we get into Bruce's pick, Millennium Eric, do you have anything else to say about Dress to Kill? Would you recommend it to the average viewer to watch if they want to see it? Yeah.
I would say I would pump the brakes if you're not into. I mean, this is essentially a sexploitation movie, and there's parts during the twist towards the middle that some people might not appreciate. But you can always turn it off at that point if you really want to. But there's a lot of great filmmaking in this, and I would definitely I would recommend it. Just know that I would put a trigger warning at the beginning.
Yeah. Okay.
Overall pretty good movie. I was a little. I don't quite understand why it was on Criterion. Because usually, like, you watch a Criterion movie, and it's like, oh, I get this. It's doing this thing. This just seemed like it was a good De Palma movie, so they put it on there. I guess I was hoping
Eric,
for something.
Eric, you're breaking up again because if Brian De Palma did a split diopter movie about my two microphones out there on my laptop, that would be a Criterion release, Eric Holmes. That would go on Criterion.
I'll say this.
Yeah.
The Fury, as far as I know, is not a Criterion. I think that should be a Criterion over this one. But this one's still really good too.
That is very fair. And, listeners, if you listen to that Happy Birthday Greg Srzavosty episode that Bruce Perky and Eric Holmes did, Eric Holmes actually helped me just rejigged my own thoughts on The Fury. I was being a little bit dismissive of it, and he in his own way, he really defended that movie in a very righteous sense. And I can't wait to actually rewatch The Fury. Bruce Perky, my apologies for going on and on about Brian De Palma. What is your
What? How dare you?
So what is your first pick for this episode?
Just so you know, all three of my movies are suggested by someone else in one way or another. That's just kind of my little mini theme I gave to myself. The first one was suggested by someone on the Cinematics page. If you're not part of our group, you should get to be part of that group because it's really awesome. There's lots of great cinephiles on there. By Joseph Bridges. And he suggested a little movie that is currently on Tubi, and you can probably find it some other places too, but Tubi's easy. Everyone can get that. And it's called Little Dieter Needs to Fly.
Oh.
And
I've always wanted to see this.
Little Dieter Needs to Fly is a documentary from 1997 by Werner Herzog. Now, if you've seen Rescue Dawn by Werner Herzog, which I want to say came out in 2005, 2006, something like that, with Christian Bale. This is the documentary about the actual person that's depicted in Rescue Dawn. The character or the person is Dieter Dengler, and he survived very extreme prison camp, torture, behind enemy lines after he crashed his aircraft in Vietnam during the Vietnam War. And it talks about his whole basically survival and how he finally got out of there alive. If you know anything about Werner Herzog, he's very charismatic as a documentarian. He has a very distinctive style of, narrating his movies, especially like Grizzly Man. Some of the ones he's done more recently are very kind of iconic. Surprisingly, Werner Herzog doesn't have to do much narration in this because Dieter Dengler is an amazing storyteller, and he does almost all of the storytelling in this movie. It's his show.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah. And it is very good. Even if you've seen Rescue Dawn, it's great. If you haven't seen Rescue Dawn, I would say watch this first and then watch Rescue Dawn. This is better than Rescue Dawn, I think, because what Werner Herzog does to make this really unique is you start out, you meet this guy, and you're just kind of getting to know him. But then as it gets into the story, he'll do really weird things. Like when the guy's talking about his life as a kid over in, I was Austria or Germany. Was it like the Black Forest when the war was kind of ending and stuff, and he was going to come to America? They go and interview him there. They take him back to his town that was destroyed, doesn't exist anymore hardly. It's all been rebuilt, and he'll be standing there in the Black Forest. But even better, when he's talking about his time back in Laos and Vietnam, he takes him there to the spots, and then he gets local people to pretend to be his captors, and they will tie him up, and the people from that area who are just people there have guns, and they run him through the forest just like he was run through it while he's telling the story. It's like the most triggering thing ever. And this guy now, when he's doing it, is probably like 60 or something. It's incredible.
Only Herzog would do that, though.
Yes.
I mean, that is so what the F. Had no idea.
Like when there's a spot where he talks about when they were trying to escape and him and his friend, and if you know, seen Rescue Dawn, you know what happens to his friend. He tells that story as well. You probably know what I'm talking about, Greg, which is something. But there's a moment earlier on when they're trying to escape where they almost go over a waterfall. So they go to the waterfall. It's pretty great. It's a pretty great documentary. It's good.
Eric Holmes, have you seen Rescue Dawn? Have you been able to watch that?
Yeah, I've seen Rescue Dawn. It's been a while. I haven't seen the Dieter, but the way you're describing it, is it similar to is it Active Killing, where they got the dictators or whatever, and they reenact what they did, and then
it isn't, because these aren't like the actual people that captured him, right? So he's the only, like, as far as you could tell. Well, that's not totally true. There's some other people that were involved in it that come in at one point. But as far as his captors go, you don't see them. They don't put them in that position. But he is in the position he was in, basically reenacting it with people from the area, which is really interesting. I can't describe it quite, but when he tells certain stories, it's like it's something. And just the story itself is fascinating. So,
It just seems, when you see Little Dieter Needs to Fly, it seems you're actually going into a story with a guy who's very interesting, but he, on top of being an interesting storyteller, the story is amazing. So this is one of those things from the get-go. Are you just really immersed, even whether or not you saw Rescue Dawn or not? You're just right in?
I felt like I was, because it was really interesting. Like right out of the gate, you just meet him, right? And it's just kind of at his home. So at first it's kind of like nothing much is happening. He's at his home and he goes to walk in his front door, and he stops and he opens the door and he closes it and he opens it and he closes it. Then he goes inside, and Herzog's outside, and he opens and closes the door a few more times. And you're like, what is this guy? Obsessive compulsive? Like, what's going on here? And he says like, oh, well, ever since what happened to me, I always want to make sure I can open a door. Like, I want to make sure I can open the door anywhere I go. And just like right out of the gate, like, okay, what's going on here? This is cool. And then it goes. Yeah.
Does this make you, even though you like this better than Rescue Dawn, does it make you kind of might want to see it again?
It does. I mean, I liked Rescue Dawn. I liked it.
Okay.
But I mean, this just has that extra level of visceral, like, reality, because it's the guy. And when you see the pictures of him, the actual photos of him when he was 95 pounds or whatever he was, and then he tells the story of what happened, just like examples of telling the stories of him all being like chained together and having to crap through the bamboo onto the ground, but figuring out if they could somehow get the rats that are crawling through their own crap, stuff like that. And you're just like, oh my God, it's intense. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. Okay. So that is Little Dieter Needs to Fly. It's available on Tubi. And Bruce, I haven't been to Tubi in months, but again, the commercials are actually not as
No, they're no big deal. You get like a couple little commercial breaks in there, but it's no big deal.
Okay. Yep. Little Dieter Needs to Fly. That might hey guys, one of these days we might have to tackle Herzog. That would be really interesting to do. But where do we start? Right? It's amazing.
Yeah.
Fitzcarraldo would definitely have to be one of them. But okay, so great pick, Eric Holmes. You got another one?
Yeah. Well, I got two. We'll do two because I got two shorts. One is called A Trip to Mars from 1910. It was directed by Ashley Miller, so that's nice. And IMDb has no one else in the casting crew. But apparently Thomas Edison was a producer on this. It's like 5 minutes, like 5 minutes and 4 seconds. It's like almost exactly 5 minutes. And this guy sits there and makes a potion, and he drops a potion on the thing, and they start floating. And he grabs it, pulls it down, pours potion on another thing, starts floating, falls down. He goes over by the window, accidentally spills the potion on himself, and then floats out the window. And he goes to Mars, and then he comes back to Earth. That's pretty much it. So the next movie. So the next movie was on, let me find this, We Make Movies International Film Festival. And you can find these on YouTube, and it's them on YouTube. It's their We Make Movies. You go there and subscribe. And this was last week, I think. And I didn't watch all of them. I saw quite a few of the shorts. But the one I went to see was called Compel. It's written and directed by Patrick Coleman Duncan, starring Jessica Rothert and Travis Stanberry, who, if you watch Groupers, you will know him as Hank. One of the he had the little Alex the Large eye thing.
Yep.
The bald guy, and he's freaking hilarious and awesome. And this was Patrick Coleman Duncan played Dan, and him and Jessica are in. It looked like an apartment, but I think it was supposed to be like a cheap hotel. I'm not sure what it was, maybe an apartment. But either way, they're they clearly met each other, and they're having a little tryst. And all of a sudden, they're all naked and having sex, and everything's all good. And then you hear a bang, bang, bang. It's like, oh, there's my husband. You're what? Oh, damn it.
Oops.
And husband is Jeff, played by Travis Stanberry. Yeah, dude, he's so good. He's just he comes in, and he's you can tell they're kind of like on a break, because he's annoyed that she's having sex with someone else, but it's not quite like that he wants to watch, but it's not far from that either. It's almost like, all right, you're fucking him now. Okay, whatever. But, I'm pissed at you and blah, blah, blah. Let's talk about this, and you get out of here. But he's like handcuffed to a thing. And it gets, it's a weird sex thing. And it's got a really fun twist at the end. And, yeah, I would definitely check it out. It gets really weird at the end, but kind of fun. And it's called We Make Movies. Just go on YouTube, look up We Make Movies International Film Festival, and then just subscribe to their YouTube page. And they got a bunch of them. I mean, this is one of many, and all of them I've seen probably like 5 different ones, and they're all good in different ways. Like they got really strange shorts. They got really sweet ones. They got weird ones like this, and then they got like they had one where a guy with like a panda, I forget what the name of it is, he has like a panda mask on, and like stops a convenience store robbery, and then everyone dies there, and then he does a bunch of drugs, and then he gets beat up by some guy in an alley. Then he does more drugs. Yeah, it's just that one's all over the place, kind of like this review. But yeah, Compel by Patrick Coleman Duncan, and starring Travis Stanberry as being awesome, and he needs to be in everything, and that's why I'm talking about this.
Yeah, cool.
Go check it out.
Of course, I basically see Travis again in Groupers. Our buddy Anderson Cowan directed that movie. It's available now on Amazon Prime Video, right? So you can go there and check out Groupers. That's another cool film that our whole cinematics community and friends of Anderson Cowan, we try to promote that as much as possible. Yes. Very interesting film.
If you haven't seen Groupers, the fuck, dude?
What the F? Yes,
the
what
fuck?
the F?
Go watch Groupers.
Anderson's a very talented writer and director. Bruce, what you got next?
Next, I've got a movie that's on Netflix that was suggested by my son. He wanted to sit in on the review, but I haven't quite got it set up so we can get dual headphones going. So maybe the next time he suggests something. But
Please say Enola Holmes. Please say Enola Holmes.
it's not Enola Holmes. This is a French animated feature. So back to the animation. But lucky for you guys who aren't really into international animation, but you kind of want to dip your toes in, it is dubbed, well dubbed, with voice acting by Marianne Cotillard, Paul Giamatti, Susan Sarandon, J.K. Simmons, all kinds of
Wow.
people are in there. So you got quality actors in the dubbing, and then a bunch of French actors, that are actually dubbing in English too. So 2015, it's called April and the Extraordinary World. So I've got to the point now where, hey, my kid will suggest things to me sometimes, and I should watch those. So he suggested this several times. So I said, okay, he really thinks this one's good. And he was right. It's a really, really good movie. This is the kind of animated movie that I think anyone could fall into and really just enjoy it. It's just a great adventure. It's not super childish. It's actually more on the level, I would say, of something like a Harry Potter level. So it's got like child elements, but it's more of an adult story. So the basic concept is this: April, or Avril, if you get the French version, but April is in a kind of an alternate reality where around the turn of the century, like in the steampunky kind of time, where everything's all steam and pipes and all that kind of stuff, all of the scientists in the world get abducted by somebody, we don't know who, and basically technology does not advance. So you end up with like Napoleon III and Napoleon IV, and everything is it's kind of this weird, almost steampunk like world that they live in, where everything's like smoky because of everything's run on coal and all this kind of stuff. There's like one tree left in Paris. There's 2 Eiffel Towers. There's all these weird trams and stuff. The animation and the art direction is really cool, but it's really fun. And the basic story is that April's parents were scientists, and they were kind of come up with this serum that would allow it would allow everybody to eventually not have to have any kind of sickness or never die, and would also allow them to kind of evolve really quickly. And they're trying it out on animals. And in fact, her cat, Darwin, can speak. He's kind of sardonic. He hangs around with April all the time. Her cat's like walking around. But her parents get abducted. So 10 years pass, and she's now, an late teen, I guess. He doesn't really say her age, 17 or 18. Her cat's almost ready to die. And the adventure ensues. She has to go out and find her parents and find out what's going on. And it's a really fun, very imaginative. This is the kind of movie that if it wasn't animated, you could imagine like Leica making it. The people that made like Coraline and like all those movies.
Yeah.
I could imagine this being done in that style and being really, really cool too. A ton of fun. I would say highly recommended, especially if you have kids that are slightly older, 10 to 12, 9 to 13, somewhere in that range. A lot of fun. It is April and the Extraordinary World on Netflix.
That is very cool. That is the second out of 3 recommendations you have this week,
Yep.
April and the Extraordinary World. Cool. That sounds, it's one of these things where whenever you do an animation thing, I bank it, and a couple of weeks later, I'll probably check it out. I can't wait to see your name again.
I should have called out the directors. That's Christian Desmar and Frank Akinci. And they were involved in early animation on Persepolis. So this is kind of their move to the bigger stage as far as directing their own stuff. So yeah, It's a lot of fun.
Cool. All right. Awesome. Eric, you have one more before we get to Bruce to round out?
I do. I have a movie directed by Herbert I. Leeds from 1942 called The Man Who Wouldn't Die. It's about a man who would not know. Just this opens up with 2 guys burying someone. Not quite sure who this someone is, but then the daughter comes home. You know, the two guys are talking with the dad, and the daughter comes home, and she's talking about that she got married, and the dad's like, "Hey, who is this guy? What new scoundrel did you bring into your life this time?" And she's like, "Oh, he's not a scoundrel. You'll like him," and this and that. And so they're like, "Yeah, whatever." So anyway, they all go to bed, and then in the middle of the night, someone sneaks into the daughter's room and pulls a gun out. She screams. They shoot. The person misses, runs off, and then everyone wakes up. Who the hell was that? I don't know, but we got to call the cops. Dad's like, "We are not calling the cops because him and his buddies just buried someone." And presumably the person they just buried was the one that came back and tried to kill the daughter. So the daughter's shaken up. She can't call the cops because the dad won't let her. So she hires a private investigator, and she just mentioned to her dad that she was married, but the dad hadn't met her husband yet. So the private investigator is playing the part of her husband while they try to figure out this attempted murder. And the main guy, played by Lloyd Nolan, oddly enough, he kind of has a Bill Maher look to him, which should annoy me, but it doesn't, because he's actually, unlike Bill Maher, this guy's actually really funny. The writing's really sharp and really witty in this, and it's a fun kind of murder mystery. And it's really dark, but the humor and the bright fun characters they have in this is kind of similar to like a Clue or Knives Out. You know, they got the murder mystery. It's, you know, it's dark, it's violent, but it's also, the characters are so fun that it kind of adds a lot of fun to it. This is you can find it on YouTube, and I would absolutely check this one out, especially if you like murder mysteries and if you love just fun whodunits. And it's kind of like a Scooby-Doo mystery, sort of, but not. I suck at
So
this
The
today.
Man Who Wouldn't Die. How does it look on YouTube? 1942.
And
It's okay.
the version I saw looked really good. It
Okay.
looked clear as fuck my brain. Who was the director that we did? The one we did after William Friedkin.
The one we did after William Mario Bava, Dario Argento. One of those.
No, my brain doesn't work today. The other guy, the one you picked,
The one I picked. Oh, Joseph H. Lewis.
Joseph H.
Yeah.
Lewis.
Mhm.
Imagine that kind of movie, in tone, but with characters that have a lot more humor to them. That's kind of the tone that this one is, and it looks fantastic. Now it's not as it doesn't have the shots that Joseph H. Lewis does. This one's pretty. This one could easily be a stage play, like
Okay.
completely easily be a stage play. But it does have a really cool car chase in the middle of it. I was kind of impressed with the car chase that they did, especially given the time. So that was pretty good.
Okay. So the
Man.
Man Who Wouldn't Die. Very interesting. I just have no idea how you just decided to pick this movie, Eric. You were a murder mystery guy or something, or you were just surfing on YouTube and that's what
No,
drove you to watch it?
I go on YouTube and I search old ass movies.
That's amazing.
And
I swear to God, your choices are so out there in an amazing way. I love it. I love it. The Man Who Wouldn't Die.
I saw
Yeah.
The Man Who Wouldn't Die, and I was like, I want to see a movie about a man who wouldn't die. What is this one about? And I watched it, I'm like, turns out pretty good.
It's directed by Herbert, either I or L. I don't know when you capitalize. I think it's Herbert L. Leeds.
I think
Directed
it's
the movie. Herbert I.
I
Leeds,
think so.
born in New York City in 1900, died May 16th, 1954 in Manhattan. Suicide by shotgun. So
Whoa.
that's an interesting fact, sad fact
Yowzers.
about Mr.
He's got-
Leeds.
They got his selected filmography here. He's got Charlie Chan in The City of Darkness, Mr. Moto in Danger Island, Romance of the Rio Grande, and
No.
It Shouldn't Happen to a Dog. And I'm really curious of what It Shouldn't Happen to a Dog is about.
Right. Yes, there you go. And Yeah, no, so there's another movie called Manila Calling. I probably should watch it, me being Filipino and all. But so yeah, it'll be yeah, it's interesting. The Man Who Wouldn't Die. I think I'm gonna give that one a shot, especially since you
Yeah,
said it had some really interesting humor. So
yeah.
okay, Bruce Perky, your last
All
pick.
right.
You're going you're populist Bruce Perky going for the
Yes.
people. Yes, yeah, yeah.
Well, this is a roundabout recommendation because William Lindis, we have mentioned many times, Movie Bears podcast extraordinaire. Well, he's also a big fan of the film festival circuit. Sorry, my brain
Okay.
isn't working very well here. Um, circuit, whatever. He especially loves Fantastic Fest, and of course, almost every film festival, if not all of them, are either virtual or mostly virtual this year, which is something that we should all remember. So if there's a film festival you've always been interested in, you should find out when it's happening and see if you can actually get into it virtually. So this year, Fantastic Fest is happening this last weekend, and still actually a day or two maybe left. And William Lindis had been mentioning it as he goes and watches everything, because he watches everything. He started talking about it, and I was like, okay, I have Saturday off. I'm going to watch 3 movies Saturday. I'm only going to talk about one of my favorite of the bunch, but I did watch a couple of them. Uh, and this was a movie that I love. And kind of like we said with 12-Hour Shift, tone. This definitely will not be some people's tone. So this movie is called The Old Man, the movie, or I can't even say it in Estonian, but it's an Estonian stop motion comedy. And if you know what stop motion is, claymation, whatever you want to call it, I would say if you like early South Park, if you like Meet the Feebles era / Bad Taste era, Peter Jackson, early Sam Raimi. It's not horror, but that kind of bonkers, willing to go for the gross out, willing to go like for the low hanging fruit humor along with the other humor, then you might be willing to go with this one. So first of all, it's just sublimely ridiculous. I love this so much. It's these 3 kids dropped off at grandpa's house. They literally had dropped off. Grandpa lives in the country. It's like the car pulls up, the parents' car pulls up, the kids get out, the car speeds away. See you at the end of the summer, kids. That's it. And I love these stop motion figures because the scenery is beautiful and all like, impeccable. But the actual stop motion figures are the faces are almost like rudimentary. They almost even don't move, but the voice acting is so hilarious. The basic concept is this: they get dropped off. They find out immediately they're on the grandpa's farm. Grandpa's a dairy, cow farm. His claim to fame is like the whole town will come up to the door of the barn, and he'll do this big, giant, like crazy milking routine, and everyone's waiting for the milk that day. And the kids basically are going to be shoveling shit. That's mostly what they're going to be doing, Well, right out of the gate, they think that the cow is overworked, so they let the cow go, and the cow starts heading off across the countryside. Grandpa and kids go in tow to try to find the cow. Kids want to basically make sure the cow gets taken care of. Grandpa wants to get his meal ticket back. And a crazy old evil villain named Old Milker goes after the cow to kill it.
Wow.
Now, what is Old Milker?
I have some ideas.
There is a prologue to this movie that shows Old Milker as a young man, and he had failed to milk his cow for 24 hours, and it had caused a huge milk explosion, like atomic level milk explosion. Old Milker is awesome. Old Milker now is like this decrepit, like he has this waxy complexion, and he literally like sweats milk. It's crazy. And he gathers up these guys to go out and kill the cow. It's ridiculous. It's so much fun. It's full of scatological humor and just gross humor.
But it has a good spirit to it, though, right? It has
Oh God,
really,
yes, so much of a good
yeah.
spirit and so much fun. There's a Axl Rose lookalike that is inside of something that's similar to Jonah and the Whale, but it's not Jonah and the Whale because you're in the middle of an Estonian forest.
That's funny.
And it's an actual member of the major hair metal band in Estonia, which that does exist, called Terminator. I'm telling you, man. Oh, they stopped by a hipster music festival out in the woods, and a lot of awesomeness ensues there. I can't describe how awesome this movie is. I love this movie so, so, so much. It is directed, I should fail to mention all this stuff. I'm just talking about it. It is directed by Oscar Liema and Mick Maggi. I'm saying their names terribly. I apologize, guys. It's great. It's not going to be available right away because it's on a film festival. Keep your eyes peeled for this one. I think you will hear about it in the cult movie rounds for sure. Old Milker.
Man.
You got to see Old Milker.
I like the Old Man, the movie. That just,
Yeah.
the translation's amazing. So I can't
And
wait
just
to
stuff
see
like the old man, like he drives his tractor because they're going to try it out to get the cow, right? And he has all this vodka, he'll pour some of the vodka into the tractor. That's what keeps it running. But he has to keep enough for himself, just stuff like that. It's ridiculous.
Nice tip on that with the vodka. No, I'm excited to see this movie. So, all right. Yeah, no, is this close to a 5-star film, Bruce Parkey? Close to it?
For me, it is. Yeah, I love this movie.
Yes, okay.
I will. This, and as our little preview, I might have an interview with these directors. I know that they did a little Q&A at Fantastic Fest, and they showed off the little models and stuff. And I love this kind of stuff. I can't help it.
I just want to see what Old Milker looks like. That would be. I just really want to see, if they have any kind of
Milker.
If they have any kind of figurines or merch with this, it'd be really cool. With a cow and everything like that. So, the Old Man, the movie. All right, that sounds good. That is it. Anything else you guys want to do for any other recommendations before we get out of here? Anything?
Not yet. We'll see next week. I might have a thing I was gonna have a thing for this week, but it didn't come in, so we'll have to see if it comes in next week. But
Okay, hopefully next week.
Yeah.
And I really want to say something smart or wise or witty, but it's just, my thing is keep watching movies. That's a really good thing. And one of these, I want last week, Eric Holmes, you came, I think it was, actually, who actually let us out last week? I think it was you, Bruce Perky, who let us out last week. Eric Holmes, words of wisdom, thoughts, insights, lead us out into
some of our older listeners, when you get into the twilights of your life, it may seem like there's not much left to live for, and you just want to, relax and ride it out. But just know that there's a cow out there that needs milk, and you too could be an old milker. Dude, I suck at everything today. I can't do this.
Listeners, whether or not you're lactose intolerant,
there you go.
Milk will always do a body good, but what's even better is a weekly podcast recommendation of movies. And that's us at Find Your Film. Eric Holmes was just insulting himself. He's a wonderful human being. And I will always sing the praises of Bruce Perky and Eric Holmes to the high heavens, as long as they are both Brian De Palma fans, and as long as you guys listeners are De Palma fans as well. If not, do not listen to us. What is that? Oh, that is Old Milker. He's showing us what old. Oh my gosh. You got to listen. Oh, you know what? Bruce Perky just showed us what Old Milker looks like. It's going to haunt me for the rest of my days. You have to check it out on Bruce Perky's Rusto Meyer YouTube channel, because that is also houses our weekly video podcast of Find Your Film. By the way, Bruce Perky does a really bang up job on putting our show up on his YouTube channel. Okay, so that's it. I apologize for slathering all over your end game comments. You are awesome, Eric. You are awesome, Bruce. And I am not Anderson Cowan. We will see you guys next week.